Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, and today's episode is going to be interesting. We are going to hit you with some life advice, one that it's never too late to start, whatever age you may be. If you have an idea, pursue it. And that's going to be the life advice side of it. Now, on the other side, we're going to be talking about educating and engaging with the youth in a way that is fun. And like I said, keyword engaging. With social media and technology, there are so many distractions out there and so much competition to you as a parent, a mentor, whatever it may be, when it comes to educating and entertaining your children. And so we have a guest here with an innovative strategy using card games that will educate and engage. And so we're going to get into that, as well as someone who is a veteran and taking care of someone else who is disabled. And we're going to talk a little bit about the hardships of being a caregiver and some of the advice to help alleviate those burdens that can be weighing us down. Not that the person we're taking care of is a burden, of course. We are all here to help one another, but it does come with some hardships, and we're going to talk about the reality of that and what we can do to help that. So, Ms. Zorina Pritchett is here to join us. Would you please introduce yourself for us?
Thank you for having me. I'm Zorina Pritchett. I am founder of Zochey, and like you said, I created a quick play card game, and I am a disabled veteran caregiver, all of that. Um, and sometimes I say this, guys, I have all these balls I'm throwing up in the air, but they do fall sometimes, and I just simply pick them up and start all over again. So it's great to be here with you.
Yeah, and so I mentioned that you're a veteran, and so we're all curious, when did you join, what branch, and why?
I joined in the early 80s. Don't have me think I'm old now. I'm thinking about the exact date. Actually, I joined because my ex-husband at the time, we had gotten married when we were in college, and we had this plan that we're going to allow our parents to continue to pay for our college education. But unfortunately, my mom went snooping in my room and found my marriage certificate and say, "Oh, well, now you're married, you're grown now." And so we ended up having to find our own place and we struggled to pay for our own college. And
Right.
so we came up with this great idea. Let's join the military because we felt like it was a win-win. We could serve our country as well as have them help pay for our education. And that is how I ended up being in the military. And I'm glad I did join because I learned a lot of life lessons that I apply today.
For sure. Now, you say you and your ex-husband both joined together. It sounds like the beginning of I want to say a bad story, unfortunately. How did that go? You two joining the same branch, trying to get stationed together. I know some branches will say, hey, after a year being stationed separate, you can be stationed at the same base. How did that all play out?
Well, we did end up, we joined the Army and we did go to different locations for our basic training. We also went to different locations for our advanced school. But I ended up being recycled because I got injured in basic training. And then the thing about it, I wasn't on active duty very long because after our break, we got together, had too much fun and then we created my little boy, my son. And so when we got to our duty stations, both ended up being in infantry in Fort Polk, Louisiana. And so we decided that, you know what, we were going away a lot. So I decided to go ahead and get out and be a full-time mom. And then he stayed in. So it was challenging at first being apart, but it worked its way out.
Okay, okay. And so you talk about having that family dynamic where you're separated and now you're a full-time mother and he's still active duty. And so how did that really affect you as a mother having, when it comes to being a stay-at-home mom and a full-time mom, of course it's hard for anyone doing that, but to have a husband then who is gone for most of the time, I mean, what challenges came with that?
For me, it was very challenging because we were still in Louisiana and I had joined a reserve group uh, in Louisiana and not being surrounded by family and friends. So when he would go off on his training. It was just me and trying to coordinate someone to take care of my son when I had to do my weekend drills. It was very challenging. And what I found useful is that I had to get a surrogate family. There was a family that took a liking to me because I was very young with a small child. And so I spent a lot of my time with them. They also was able to support my education because remember, we went in to help pay for our education.
Right.
So while in reserve, I could still go to school. So they helped support me in taking care of my son while I went to night school to take some more college courses. And I think with the military, being a spouse, you have to have that community support. And so there was other activities on the base that I took advantage of. And that's how I worked it out. It really, that community support was very there for me to be able to pursue my goals and have that support in helping me raise my son during his father's absence.
All right. And would you say the time you spent with your son and being a mother, did that have a big influence or impact on the creation of your game? Or I know we talked about it's never too late to start, and I say that because I know the game was really later on in your life, quite later on. So what were some of the things throughout your life that led to its creation?
Well, honestly, I think what led to the creation, other than it appeared to me in a dream, was that when my brother fell ill from a brain stroke, all my time was devoted to him. And so I just felt like maybe it came at a time where I needed something for myself because I had retired. And then
Hmm.
also at the time that it came about, my son, who's grown, had two daughters, and they were so actively involved in their screens, and he would complain about that a lot. And then one of his daughters was in some kind of chat online, and she thought she was talking to another teenager, but it was a grown man from Russia. And so I think the combination of being concerned for my granddaughters and then also working with my brother, that maybe the universe said we need something special for her. And so when I had the dream of the game, I developed it, tested with my family, and then I noticed that my granddaughters, they really liked the game. In fact, the youngest one was the one that told me to bring it to market because she said that because of the quick play, it makes it easier for you to follow, pay attention, and you want to play it because it has a touch of suspense. And she said, most importantly, it's because they had a chance to create memories with their parents. Because most times when you're on your screens or your digital devices, you're playing by yourself. But when they play the game, they get to have fun with their parents. And so that's how I ended up bringing the game to market.
Yeah, not only do they have fun, but they have giggles and wiggles of fun. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was my slogan because whenever we play, we laugh a lot because of the suspense. And then too, I think it's because not often, if we really think about it, not often do we have an opportunity to play a game, a very simple, suspenseful, little touch of suspense that multi-generation can play. And so whenever I had the opportunity to sit down as the grandmother and then play with my own son and his wife and my granddaughters and all of us enjoying the game and we're laughing and relaxing. It was really fun until the early stages. I have to say, the early stages of the game, the youngest had a problem. We didn't know she had an issue with emotional regulation. And what I mean by that, she would become so upset that she started throwing the cards everywhere because she was losing. And so we were able to find out later. I asked her what was going on with you, because it was really disturbing to see her behavior. We knew she was competitive, but not to this degree where she would literally get angry about it. And she said, Gigi, the game just moved so quickly and it was new to me and I had to adjust to it. And when I finally understood and had the fun and just relax and have fun, then I was able to control my emotions. But I have to tell you, it was very disturbing. And that's why I think another reason why parents should play games with their kids and see how they respond to situations that are uncomfortable, because then that gives you an opportunity to do some correct them in a loving, supportive way and help them to get beyond that. And that's what we did with her together as a family.
Yeah, I think that's vital. If you have children who have never been in a competitive environment or something of that sort, and then their first time is at school, like you said, you rather have them have the harsh reaction, the undisciplined reaction at home in that safe environment than let's say it happens out in public and it's at school and maybe they start a fight over it with they hit someone else, whether it's sports or some kind of friendly classroom game that gets out of hand. So I think it's important, like you said, to have that at home and also just bringing families together, like you said, multiple generations. And I think a lot of families are spending a lot of time apart from each other just because of the way the world is. They're spending all their time at home in your phone. Like you said, there would be everyone's just sitting on the couch in their phone, you know, with each other, but not engage with each other. And so I think it's totally important to have a game that really brings people together. And we're going to have the link in the description below for anyone to check out this game who's interested in it, of course. But I'd love for you to just explain to us kind of the basic concept of the game and how it works. I know we've mentioned it's a card game. It's fast, kind of a bit of a suspense and competition. So if you could explain that to us.
So, how do you play Zomadic Shift? First off, it's not Uno, because when people play it, they say, "Oh, it reminds me of Uno." And I say that because there's a matching piece of it where you match colors. And with Zomadic Shift, there's only 12 colors that you have to match during the game. And so when those colors are matched, they're out of play. Then we have the other elimination cards. I forgot to say this, forgive me. In order to win Zomadic Shift, you have to be the last player holding a card to win. And so you have these series of cards that eliminate the player's hand. You have the give and take cards. When you draw those cards, you take one card out of your hand and give it to another player, or you can take a card out of their hand. And then the suspense is the shifting of cards, because you never keep your original hand. That shifts around the table, so that add that suspense on who's going to be left holding a card. But we do have a wild card, and the wild card allows you to stay in the game when all your match colors are out, or if you want to eliminate a player from the game, because you get to pull one card from them, and if they hold in that one card, they're out the game. I love that when someone's talking smack and I have a wild card. And the only way you can get back into Zomadic Shift, someone has to give you a card, and that brings you back in. So for example, if you don't have any card and they pull a give right or left and you receive their card, you're back into the game to play. And so I think the thing about the game is that it causes you a lot of cognitive moving around, the adaptability, and then it's also helped with my seniors who play the game to find motor skills. But the funny thing, I'll say this, it is amazing how we all know our left and right. And sometimes when I'm playing and I get a little confused, I'll say, "Oh, remember your military right." I'm like, "Yeah, I got it." Because I remember they used to say that to me a whole lot when I was the fourth squad leader. Yeah. And so that's the thing about it. And so when people say, "Oh, I had to go read the instructions," it's because we are so conditioned, I think, with muscle memory,
Mm.
playing games the same way. And because Zomadic Shift plays so quickly and you only have those 12 player cards, it throws people off. But it's a simple game. You're either going to match the colors, or you're going to give a card away, take a card, or you're going to shift your entire hand, or you're going to play your wild card. That's it. It's a very simple game. But because of the simplicity of it, multi generations can play with ease and have fun.
And I love that, most card games are about getting rid of everything. This is about holding on to something. So I love that difference. But we got to take a step back. I think we confused some people there. So we were talking about Zochey on and off, and then you shifted to Zomadic Shift, and people were like, "Wait, what's going on?" So could you please clarify for us that, Zochey is like the overarching brand, and then you have different games underneath that, correct?
Yes, Zochi is the name of the business that I started. As you know, you can see the ZO, like my name, Zorina. C is in honor of my deceased mother. Her name was Siesta. And the Hey is, oh, wow, come play this amazing game. So Zochi is the producer of my games. I have ZomadicShift. That's for ages 11 plus and older. And then I have Pass and Play, which is a junior version of ZomadicShift for our younger players. That's from ages 4 to 10. And it's really a modified version of the original because one day when I was vending, a little girl wanted to play and she had problem with the give and take card. So I made a modified version for them to play. And then I also like the fact that their parents can use it as an educational piece too for the younger ones, like matching colors, teaching them to follow directions because you have to do that with that card. I do have my third game, which is called Face Off, ZomadicShift Face Off. That one is pending development. I'm still doing more testing on that one, and that one plays differently. But they're all of these three games are under my business name, Zochi.
Right. And ladies and gentlemen, this episode will be coming out in mid or late November, depending on my schedule, which is a little chaotic. So with that being said, right around Thanksgiving time here in the US and approaching Christmas and Boxing Day for my Australians and Canadians. But what I'm saying is a lot of family get-togethers coming up, whether that's in-laws that you don't like or do like, and mostly don't like, and your brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, all that, or your friends, if you have your adopted family. And so this is a great game to try out, try something new. Because like you said, there's so many games that we've played that are ingrained into us over and over again. And yeah, they're always fun. But it's great to try something new. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, either you can buy this yourself to host, at your family get together, whatever it may be, or this might be a good gift, open it up early on Christmas Eve and, have a little fun the night before, and then the kids go to bed and get all their gifts the next day. Or for Hanukkah parties, I don't know anything about that culture and what they do, but I'm sure you could play this game as well. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to get it. Of course, it's a fun game year round. But that's my little sales pitch on Ms. Zarina's half.
Also, too, may I add, what's so
Yes,
great
ma'am.
about being a holiday game is this. Zomatic Shift, you can have 12 players play the card game. They'll only have one card. We played it at a restaurant, and it was so interesting watching 12 people play and move the cards around
Yeah.
and finding out of 12 players who ended up holding their card. And it was just really fun. And it's not too many games you can play with that large group, but I think it's just still the suspense of it. And then kids like to play with parents. When my granddaughters win playing against their parents, it is like you think they won $1 million. They love that idea that they can brag about it. And my son, he's a little sour because he has not won a round yet. He talked about, Mom, I think you're discriminating against me. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're just not lucky. But it is really a fun game. And I want to add this too. One of the things I like about my own game is that when I was growing up, I had a hard time following games. I just could not stay focused enough. They were too slow. And so I would always volunteer to be the scorekeeper. But I also noticed with my game, Zomatic Shift, that I'm able to stay active and following attention and everything because it's quick play. There's not a lot of
Right.
memorization. I don't have to, do any extra of anything. And then also with the pass and play, I found that that game can be played with kids on with autism, depending on their spectrum. Because I did a demonstration with middle school kids, and they really like it because it's a simple game of just matching and passing of cards, but they still get that same suspense as with the Zomatic. So I really want to try to do games that not only are multi-generational, but I want them to be inclusive where kids, special needs kids, can play with their cousins and they all can have fun, their friends, and just have fun. Like I said, it's all about getting together that social engagement is what I'm really trying to shoot for, and that it could be a quick pickup game because I know many of you are busy. You don't have time for long, drawn out games. So I want them to also fit into the schedule of their parents, but also create that social engagement for our kids.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if I should say this because it is a kids game, but from my teenagers and I guess not teenagers. Well, I guess you could do teenagers and college kids if you want to bet some money on it and have a little, you know, gambling going on,
Oh
gamble
yeah.
responsibly. And if you're of drinking age, drink responsibly, but you could always, there are ways to make it plenty more fun if you're in that not a kid, not an adult range where you need to just make everything a little bit different. So still great for y'all for your holiday parties.
That's what my
But
son says. My son said, Mom, when it gets out there and people play it and they like it, it's three games in one. You can play with the smaller kids and then you can transition and play with a little wager with your friends. And then
yeah.
after everybody run out of money, then you can turn it into a drinking game. He said it's so simple and fast and you cannot cheat. You can turn it into any wager. My friend, her and her husband would play the game, decide who's going to wash dishes, who's going to do this, because it was just something to add a layer of fun in their relationship. So you can do whatever you want, but the main thing is create that social engagement and have fun with your family and your friends.
Man, if you win and your wife has to do the dishes, I would suggest just doing them anyway. Yeah, just some advice out there. I'm not really good with women, but I've had some great guests on my show who are, and I would suggest doing the dishes anyway. Um, but yeah, I think this is amazing. And do you feel in your heart or in your dreams, any more games in the future that you're thinking about?
Oh, yes. Right now, I have two games in the works. One is a multiplication game that I want to create. It won't be as fast, but I think it'll be an interesting game where parents can teach their kids their multiplication. And then also, kids will see that parents, most of us are forgetting our multiplication absent of our calculator. So that will be interesting to see. I think kids will get a kick out of seeing their parents struggle with their multiplication too. But I want to do that. And some other games that I thought of another game. What I do is like when I come up with the concept, I try to capture it and just put it in a vault for future use. I really like being in this space. I'm working on a game where you can play with the card and a board game. But I don't want the board game to be the traditional box. I have an idea of something that's going to be easy to transfer in your luggage and you don't have to worry about a box. I try to think of innovative ways in that capacity too, because it's all about kids, but it's also about the convenience of the parents.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've emphasized a couple times here the efficiency of the game in terms of the speed, the simplicity of it. So it's great. I'm definitely going to try it out for my upcoming holiday seasons, just to do something different. And of course, it's cool for me to be like, the person who made this was on my show. Check it out. Shameless plug. Yeah, so I'm going to take that everywhere I go and be like, you like this game? You can check out the owner of my show. So I'm definitely going to be playing it. And ladies and gentlemen, I highly encourage all of y'all to check it out. Especially if you've got, those younger kids, we do have the simpler version of it available for them. And by we, I mean Ms. Zarina. But Ms. Zarina, just on a little bit more of a darker note, I know we talked about you having to take care of your brother full time, and I wanted you to give us just some advice that has really helped you manage that, whether it's time, stress, and everything else that comes with that.
Well, when I first started taking care of my brother, I had no idea of the level of responsibility because he had his stroke right a month before everything shut down with COVID. So it was hard to get resources. And so I had to navigate through it by myself. And so one of the things that I learned right away after almost hurting myself, I accidentally took one of his pills that ended up in the emergency room. And a doctor told me in caregiving, you're so busy in trying to make their life better that you forget about yourself. And she said, the first thing I want you to focus on is making sure you're okay. so you can
Mm,
show up for your brother. And so that's one thing tip I say. And then also for time management, like when my brother has his appointments or I have to do his medication and everything, I select the day and I try to make sure I can do everything in that one day to devote to him and his needs, because that helps me to be less stressful and trying to go to appointment here and then another day take him to the grocery store, another day sit down and do his bills for him. Select the time that's really appropriate for you and your the care person you're taking care. I'm stumbling over my words. The person you care. If you can, try to do all those activities close together so you can have other time for yourself and things that you want to do. And then I also find out is not to take things personal from them, especially if they have any type of disorders, because sometimes my brother may come across to me as being ungrateful. And I know he's grateful. So I learned very on not to take things personal from him because it's
right.
frustrating when they cannot do for themselves and everything, their independence. And so I learned from that. And then another thing I learned from my brother is do not treat them for just survival. Try to find ways that they can thrive and regain some of their independence to the
Yes.
best of their ability. And so, what I allow him to do is I allow him to shop. I allow him to call and make his appointments, and then we coordinate. And to protect him financially, he's only allowed to use a credit card because I'm able to keep it locked. So find
Mm,
ways that would allow them to be independent, and then find something fun to do with them. Like my card game, my brother likes the card game, even though he's played it, I don't know how many times, he still
right.
stumbles because of the brain damage. And every time, you guys, he finished playing, he says the same thing. I like the game. I say, why? He said, because it's forcing me to think and I don't have to feel stressful in moving the cards, trying to get the match the
Right.
colors up. And so that allows me to have fun with my brother without stressing and do some things with them, some recreational things if possible. If you're not able to get out your house, get some very simple games that you can play with them and you both can relax and have fun. And that's what helped me. He's going on 4 years now and living by himself. He's thriving, he's building relationship in his housing complex that he lives in. I can have my life and do what I want to do. And it worked out great for us, worked out very well for us.
Yeah, and actually, depending on how things were released, the last episode before this should be a whole episode dedicated to patient care from the doctor side. And one of the things we talked about, which you touched upon today with the not taking things personally, is patience being such an important aspect. And for those of you who are saying, of course, I'm already a patient person, it's no problem. This is a whole nother level of patience, of dealing with stuff, So I completely agree with you. And I think it's so important, like you said, that making sure they're thriving, not just surviving. I think a lot of people just get so tired and frustrated that they're just making sure the minimum needs are met. And then the person, if they're not thriving, if they're just surviving, it's only going to make them more irritable, more difficult to take care of. So it's beneficial to both of y'all and to all of y'all to, help them. Like you said, the more independent they feel, especially men, when they lose their independence, whether it's from a stroke, whether it's paralysis, whatever it may be, um, it can be very, very, very difficult for them to adjust to that. Like I said, especially men, just because we love working with our hands and running
Mm-hmm.
around and doing all this stuff. Women do too, of course, but men especially when that's like their whole identity is tied to being able to build stuff or fix stuff or do stuff. So it's so important to have that, especially when it's a veteran who was in the military. They had that whole other level of pride and identity on top of that. But I think it's great, like you said, that your game can be used to work with patients who are in similar situations as to your brother, because it's simple yet engaging. It's causing them to think, but not too much. right? Maybe don't share the multiplication one with them, but
No.
it's helping them think and having a good time. So I think it might be something for everyone to try if they haven't been able to break through or find a game that really helps connect with whoever they're helping take care of, or maybe it's a grandparent that you have who is just doing really bad medically. This might be another option to try that is simpler, faster, easier, and can form that connection. And so I really thank you for your service to this country, for the games you're creating, because I think it's so important for our youth to have non-electronic stuff. Like, I'm not bashing entirely on technology. I think it's great. I think there are some amazing aspects to it that are really beneficial to our youth. But there's
Mhm.
also a lot of bad, and there's also a lot of imbalance. There's a lot of, technology just taking over everything. Everywhere you go, I mean, almost everything is now just technology. Like I said in a recent episode, one of the local grocery stores here, you can scan the lines in your hand to pay. Like it's taking over everything. But it's important to have a game that unplugs you from that. It can be difficult to get your children to unplug, and I think this is a great way to do that. Whether you play inside or outside, at least they're off the phone for that period of time. So, Ms. Zorina, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate having you as a guest.
And thank you for inviting me. And I just like to tell parents, if you want your kids to grow up in this digital world, then you're going to have to be an active participant in providing boundaries because yes, social media is out there, the digital is out there, but how are we going to raise our children if they're doing everything isolated? They're learning in school with the digital, they're using digital for entertainment. And so then we want them to grow up and be able to socialize with the community. And we're already seeing incidents where kids are not getting it because
Mm-hmm.
we are the safeguards for them at home. So I really encourage you to find time in your busy schedules to sit and play a game, put a puzzle together, or even watch a movie and talk about it to create that social engagement for their emotional and social well-being.
Sailing through the ocean blue, nuclear reactors my crew, guiding the ship, the stars as our guide, through the waves we ride, jokes and laughter fill the air, on this voyage we have to share, working together, side by side, as one family we will abide. In the heart of the ship we reside, nuclear operators with pride, powering the vessel with every stride. Our mission, a source of great pride.